Welcome to Game Day Recap, along with Mike St. Green. I'm Cameron Irvine, and Week 3's in the books. We didn't get a chance to recap Saturday, so we're going to do both days this week in one segment with the Super Bowl and the Sunday slate starting a little earlier. We wanted to get after it all in one. Mike, let's start with I think probably the biggest headline of the week, the Season 5 championship rematch. It lived up to the billing, and I'm not even sure that there was much billing to begin with. I don't know that people thought that DC was going to compete like that. To give people context, Mexico City, then Santa Fe, lost the Season 5 championship 31-30. This game goes to overtime, tied at 31. It was like a carbon copy. DC scores a late touchdown to, this time to tie the game, not win the game. But it was so similar, and this comes out of an 0-2 expansion team that showed up in a huge way on the road. Sort of, Mike St. Green, unexplainable to me. How do you explain that explosion after they had 10 points in the first 2 weeks?
Yeah. I'll tell you what the craziest thing about this game was. It probably wasn't the most exciting game of the weekend, but that's probably the most amazing thing about this game. But I don't know what it is about DC. I've kind of grown a affection for this team over the first 3 weeks of the season. Man, I like the way they scrap. I like the way that they compete. They jumped out early in this game, 10-0, and seemed to have Mexico on the ropes. And Matt Wilson came back, got off the mat, if you will, and 3 touchdown passes after struggling with interceptions early. DC, man, they seem to be well coached. All the guys seem at the right place at the right time. And today they just seem to make the big plays when they needed to stay competitive with Mexico City all game long.
On the Mexico City side of things, another slow start. They are 2-1. That's the positive out of this for Mexico City. Now, they did show some more stuff later today, but Mike Daggs, DC did a great job shutting him down. I'm not even sure if that's Mexico City's offense as it is DC's defense, but K.L. Barrett continues to be a force. They ran the ball better with Ray Bentley today. Phoenix Jones is running well. Is there any reason to think that Mexico City has some problems here, or do you think that they have come into form from week 1 to week 2 to week 3? It seems like they are slowly but surely getting their gears in order. But do you have any cause for concern?
Yes, I think I have cause for concern because of the slow starts that they're having. Sooner or later, they're going to run into something where maybe they can't come out of that hole. Actually, they did run into that earlier with Charleston. By the time they got, into that ball game, it was well out of hand and couldn't recover from that. That would be my initial concern with them going into this game, and at least most of this game, I was also concerned with, K.L. Barrett seeming to be the only source of offense. But as you mentioned, later in the game, they did get Ray Bentley involved. Phoenix Jones had a big all-purpose game. And as well as I think there was another touchdown pass. Fox Highwind caught a touchdown late. So, some positive signs late, but they're definitely going to figure out how to get out of the gates faster.
From that game to 2 teams that had no problem getting out of the gates, Las Vegas and Los Angeles this week. A final score of, I think they just scored another touchdown. I'm getting word they just scored another touchdown. Final score of 54-44. Seems like forever ago. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct. And this is probably the most exciting game of the week. And I'm still not sure of that because we had some lower scoring games that were just exciting. But this game had a little bit of everything. Multiple touchdown passes, a ton of interceptions, long plays here, even a controversial play at the end of this game where most of the broadcast crew, including, us, behind the scenes, thought, Blades was out of bounds on a play that could have given Las Vegas more time. But the ref saw it another way, and the clock pretty much ran out of Vegas at that point. But yeah, this game had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, the league looked at it after the game, and it was a bad call. He
Yeah.
was out of bounds, and that should have stopped the clock. I don't remember the exact time on the clock. We are showing the play here in post, but it was less than 10 seconds. But if they would have stopped the clock, Vegas, they could have conceivably gotten a touchdown and then recovered an onside kick, and we could have seen what happened from there. But Los Angeles was able to pull away. This despite Vegas going up early, and this game was back and forth. I mean, Sully Richardson, it was like he took the first 2 weeks and he just did the exact same thing just twice. I mean, by halftime, he had the stats of a full game, and then he did it in the second half. But LZ Pryor and Jack Flash and Chris Lee, I mean, just everybody. It was so balanced. Then on the other side for Vegas, John Blades had 325 yards. I mean, that is ridiculous out of a receiver. That is going to go down as one of the greatest receiver performances of all time. And it happened in a loss. I'm rambling. There's so many things to talk about in this game. Why don't we start with where you want to go, Mike, and then we'll touch on something else.
But I'll tell you what's interesting about this game in LA in general. For me, LA, and I guess I'll say this in a 44-point game. I am extremely impressed with Los Angeles' defense.
Really?
I mean, I am. I mean, Vegas scored a lot of points on big plays. Like you said, Blades had a huge game, but also Ryan Joseph had 4 interceptions. I think Peanut Say had a couple of interceptions. This team is turning the ball over on multiple times a game against multiple teams. I think they had 6 or 7 turnovers against Houston, and they had another 6 or 7 against Vegas the other night. I'm impressed with this defense of this team. When you go back to game 1, they shut out San Diego in the second half of that game. Los Angeles, they're looking like a complete team right now.
They're an opportunistic defense for sure. I mean, they take the ball away like it's nobody's business, kind of like Houston has been the last couple of seasons in this league that just gets all the turnovers. They're getting all those turnovers. I'm glad you brought up defense, though, because Vegas's defense, that was unacceptable. And what I would be concerned about if I'm Vegas is you gave up 16 points combined the first 2 weeks. Now when you look at San Diego and Carolina, they're not bad teams, but they're not teams that are particularly scoring a lot of points against other people either. So what is this Vegas defense? Is as good as we thought it was? Because you give up 54, especially this season in the SFL, where you've only had 2, 3, 4 games with anybody over 40 points. I'd be a little concerned. Now, I wouldn't be so concerned about Colin Pierce. This rookie,
Right.
I mean, he did make some mistakes, but there were so many turnovers in that game. It was ridiculous. But he bounced back from every single one of them. His deep ball is money. I mean, it's money. And I think both teams have to feel good about their running games, too. Robert Johnson in L.A., Scott Johnson in Vegas. A lot of positives to take away from that. L.A.'s 3-0, Vegas is 2-1. It was just a crazy game. If you didn't have a chance to see it, that's the one to watch this week if you're just a casual fan on YouTube. So
Definitely. But one quick note about Vegas's defense, I do think they took Jack Flash out of the game. I think they concentrated on maybe trying to take Jack Flash out of the game because he's gotten off to a very hot start. But one Achilles heel may have been here, as you mentioned, the gunslinging of Pierce. They were scoring so fast, the defense was back on the field before you knew it. So maybe some fatigue went into that. But like I said, LA, I mean, great quarterback, great running attack. Receivers on Davius Reed and guys like that are just a handful to deal with. So I would just say maybe this is an outlier, and we'll see how Vegas bounces back next week.
That's a great point, Mike. I mean, LA had 65 plays in the first 3 quarters alone. They controlled the time of possession, and Vegas's defense was put in a bad spot. Let's transition to Sioux Falls. So it's 13-7. Sioux Falls is beating Charleston and we see something happen that rarely happens in the SFL. A quarterback got hurt, and it was not just a, oh, woe is me, I have cramps injury. It was a knee injury for TD Drew. He left the game. Enter the backup, and Charleston goes on a 12-0 run. They blank Sioux Falls the rest of the game, and Charleston sends last year's runner-up to 0-3. And they did it in Sioux Falls and with just a tremendous defensive effort. And even the backup was 9 for 12 passing. He was methodical. He did not make costly errors for his team. I don't think he threw a pick. I mean, it was one of the most incredible victories I've ever seen in the SFL. And Charleston's now 2-1. I was stunned by this, Mike.
Cam, I'm going to, give my opinion on this game in a second, but I have a question for you. Do you remember the old movies from the 70s? And now they did a remake of it later, a little later on, but Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
I've heard the name. I've heard the title.
Well, the premise is some aliens come from somewhere and get inside, the regular human's body, and they become some type of zombie. What I want to know is who invaded the Sparrows' bodies, and where is the team we've seen the past 2 seasons? Because this is, I mean, if we didn't know any better, we would think they were one of the bottom teams in the league right now. So, I don't know what's going on with Sioux Falls, but hey, Warren King, the backup quarterback for Charleston, he came in and did exactly what a backup is supposed to do, which is, be efficient and not make any mistakes and keep your team in the ball game. And that's exactly what he did. They got, big field goals from Amanda Moyer. They had a late big interception from Corey Minner to help, put more points on the board to seal the game. But, Sioux Falls did come back the following drive and were within 10 yards of scoring before, running out of time at the end of the game. But, great job by Charleston in winning that game without their starting quarterback.
To take people behind the scenes just a little bit, you called it in the very early stages of the third quarter. Sioux Falls comes out of the half, and you said, Cam, I think Sioux Falls is going to blow this game. And I said, what are you talking about? And you said they just don't look right. They don't look like they did in the first half, which they looked pretty good. They were moving the ball. Mm-hmm. They got a touchdown. Tyree was passing the ball. What did you see out of this team that changed in the second half? Was it Charleston's defense? What is going on? What's not right in Sioux Falls?
It's really something that's hard to put a finger on. It's just what I saw at the time. Like I said, in the first half, Colin Hart was looking like the old Colin Hart. They looked explosive. They looked like they were doing the things that Sioux Falls typically likes to do, but it just seemed in the second half they fell back into this, malaise, if you will, of Colin Hart didn't look explosive anymore. The things that they typically like to do, they just weren't working. And I just felt like they were letting Charleston hang around. And sure enough, in the end, they took advantage of it.
I wonder if the back-to-back championship losses and then the 0-2 start has mentally fatigued this unit. It's the same unit. They've been mm-hmm. together. They don't. It's not a bunch of new players. They've been together, and then all of a sudden, Charleston's backup quarterback comes in, and they think, "Oh, thank goodness, we finally get a break." And then stuff starts happening that is, Charleston making plays, and this team, it's almost like they curled up into a shell in the fetal position. And I'm shocked. I've been involved with the SFL in 16 seasons now. I don't know that I ever remember a team that made the championship game look like they have in the first 3 weeks. It's really startling, for sure.
Yeah. They've had me totally bewildered the first 3 weeks of the season. I don't know what else to even come up with for Sioux Falls, but they're definitely 0-3, and they're definitely looking up 3 games behind in that division right now. So a tough hole to climb out of for them.
Let's from backup quarterback to sensational quarterback play. Let's go to Arizona now. Angus Mclean, greatest game of his career, not even close. 39 of 41, 421 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a QBR of 142, which I find impossible. How is that not a perfect QBR? I don't know. I'm not going to understand that. But Angus Mclean against Eddie Gage's defense, we talked about it on television. He's the defensive mind of the league. They exploited Arizona. I have not seen London play like that ever. Now they have 2 road wins. They had 4 coming into this season in franchise history. These are not your grandmother's London Knights.
I tell you what, I had the distinct pleasure of watching that game with Eddie Gage today. And for the majority of the game, we did not. We knew McLean was making plays, but we didn't know the numbers. But to see the numbers, only 2 incompleted passes, over 400 yards, 4 touchdown passes. I tell you what, it was amazing to see. It was a great performance by Angus, and what was more surprising, outside of it being an Arizona and Eddie Gage defense, they hadn't shown this the first 2 games of the season.
Right.
So it was almost like this came out of nowhere, and just a great offensive performance from London today, and Arizona did not have an answer for it.
Yeah, as the league's executive producer, I told you, I said, this game is killing me. I want to go to bonus coverage for it, but I haven't seen an incomplete pass in forever. And lo and behold,
Right.
You look at the stats in the end, and there wasn't. I mean, Ashley Jackson only had 12 incompletions on the day, so the game moved at a blistering pace, 42-31, if we didn't say the final score already. London defeats Arizona. They got a late pick 6 from Brandon Ewing. Arizona falls to 1-2. They can't feel too depressed about this game. Their offense scored 30 back-to-back weeks now after going 8 games in a row or 9 games in a row without scoring 30. So they have the offense moving, but I think the bigger story here is London is 2-1. Now Baltimore is 2-1 after the loss, and that's it. They're alone, and they play each other, I believe, next week, if I am remembering correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the schedule, but if that is on the lineup, that should be a great, great game right there. Man, London, they, personally told me that they want to do it with defense, but hey, obviously someone said, hey, let's get this offense cranking, and it worked out fine for them today.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Robert Merrill didn't run the ball well. He didn't have anything. The stats on his day: 6 carries, 5 yards. They won that game.
Right.
On
right.
the arm
they were,
of, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, they were all in the first half. Yeah, I think that 5 yards was all in the first half. So basically, it was all on McLean today.
They just put it on his shoulders, and he delivered a victory for the London Knights, now 2-1, trying to make the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. Houston avoided an 0-3 start with a dramatic win over the Lone Star Glory. We're showing the final play here. Lone Star, no huddles all the way down the field. They're out of timeouts. It looks like they're going to come down and win this game after holding Houston to field goal after field goal after field goal. Again, the Hyenas' problem in the red zone. And you met with Damon Simeon earlier tonight too, and I want to hear what he has to say about these field goals. But Houston's defense got the stops when they needed to, and boy, was that a huge win. In the division, they are still undefeated against the Texas teams, so they still have that bragging right. And it's a divisional win. They're unbeaten in the division, even though they started they start 1-2. So huge. Just your initial takeaways.
Yeah, Houston's definitely struggling in the red zone, as you know. I have mentioned that thus far, several times this season. Did speak to Damon today about their struggles, and he had, basically said that, admittedly so, that they are having their struggles with getting Murray going on the ground, and I know they're looking to get that changed up and work on that. And I know he's going to be working hard this week to correct things that they are struggling with thus far. But At the end of the day, great defensive performance for a vast majority of that game from Houston. And they came up with a victory with a big sack by Zach Turner there late in the game to seal that victory.
Yeah, and Baker was also in on the play. He had a nice play, but Zach Turner, he's been quite possibly the best defensive lineman in this league. And Houston and Vegas, they kind of remind me of very similar teams. Houston's having the problems that Vegas did last year. Very opportunistic defense, but the offense getting field goals in the red zone is costing them victories. It did not cost them this victory, in part because A, Warren Murray seems to be Lone Star's kryptonite. They can't figure it out. And B, Lone Star has the Mexico City bug of starting games slow, but it's a far bigger problem for Lone Star right now than Mexico City. And I just wonder, is it an identity crisis? This team was built on Ike McBride and Cameron Collier and running the ball and being tough in the trenches and all this stuff. And now they don't have as many people up front as they did last year on defense. Ace Fennick is playing great. And so you're thinking, wow, Fennick's playing so great. We need to throw the ball. You got Soto and Axis and the Pro Bowler Williams, or the All-Star game selection Williams. You got all these weapons, and it's not, something is going on, because they destroyed Florida in week 1. And you and I sat here and went, this is a championship contender right here. And they have been flat 2 weeks in a row.
Well, I like you said, I did visit with a couple of Hall of Famers today and tonight. I think the league has maybe seen some things in Lone Star that they're taking advantage of. I'll say that and leave it at that. Then that would be for other teams to figure out, or Lone Star to figure out what maybe they need to do differently. But I think some teams have figured some things out with Lone Star, and they're going to have to adjust and maybe get themselves off to a faster start, or off to a start at all, because they have definitely struggled offensively the past couple of weeks.
It's a young season, and one of my favorite podcasters, Rich Eisen, does a segment called Overreaction Monday. And I think our Overreaction Monday today is, well, Lone Star missed the playoffs, right? They're 1-2. It's early. Take a breath. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Well, let's just hope they don't figure it out next week.
You said the same thing last week on San Diego. Shout out to San Diego. They did get their first franchise touchdown this week, and then tacked on an extra one late.
Let's kick that can down the road to the following week, and they can have at it after that.
Oh, you and Axis got to go at it on this week on his show. That'll be fun. All right, so we've got a group of 0-3s, Mike. Sioux Falls, Louisiana, Tulsa, D.C., San Diego. We have a smaller group of 3-0s, unbeatens, Denver, St. Louis, L.A., and Vancouver. Mike, you have to take the group as a whole. Which group is most surprising?
I'm going to say the 0-3 group, simply because of the two of the teams that are in it. Yeah, because of the two teams that are in it, Louisiana and Sioux Falls. No one would have ever predicted that these guys would be 0-3 at this point of the season. So that's the more surprising group to me.
I think that the 3-0 group is intriguing. And I would say that I'm surprised with the 3-0 group only because the only team in that group that has made a championship with their current owner is Denver. Of course, LA used to be Chicago. They made a championship way back in season 9, so I can't say that team has never made a championship. But when you're talking about new iterations of a franchise, they're it. And for that reason alone, I think Denver is the winner of week 3, because Denver's got to be looking around at the standings and going, who's stopping us? It's not Sioux Falls. It's not Louisiana. We just made Baltimore look like, a pretty good college team. But, I mean, they handled Baltimore from start to finish in that game. And they got to be thinking, who's out there that's gonna stop us? And so that's kind of surprising to me because you don't have the Baltimores, the Jacksonvilles, the Floridas, all the heavyweights, the Queen Cities, you don't have any of those teams unbeaten right now. And it's three teams that, quite frankly, just aren't used to being there. And that's pretty shocking. Denver's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah. Actually, Cam, I was reserving, my thoughts about Denver being, head and shoulders until I saw the Vancouver game tonight, just to see, how they looked in their game. But in my book right now, Denver are clearly the class of the league right now. They're the most complete team. Defensively, they're not giving up anything. I mean, they held a high-powered Baltimore team to only 16 points. Roscoe Santagria in that secondary, and a couple other guys that I'm probably going to, be remiss at mentioning right now. But the front seven of that defense is great. The offensive line has been dominating. Jared McChesney had a big all-purpose game this weekend. Yeah, Denver's head and shoulders the best team in the league right now.
All right, game balls, Mike. I told you in pre we were going to do 4. We're just going to do 2 apiece, so you're going to have to find some cuts to make. But we're going to start with your first game ball here, week 3. This is going to be tough. Who you got?
Well, I was hoping you would let me go first because this one is the obvious one. Angus Mclean is definitely getting my first game ball. I mean, you can't do a better game than that. Like I said, 2 incomplete passes, 4 touchdowns, 421 yards. Basically, he was all of the offense for that team. Angus Mclean gets my first game ball.
I'm going to give my first game ball to the entire Charleston defense. I'm not sure that SFL Nation understands how difficult it is to win a game with a backup quarterback. It's nearly impossible, especially in today's age of SFL. And I don't care that Sioux Falls is 0-2. They're a pretty good team. And Charleston was on the road. And the fact that unit did that, and it was all of them. I mean, Joseph Sabolka had a terrific sack. You mentioned Menor. Johnny Bravo had a pick. Key down the stretch. Hoffman tipped the ball at the end of regulation to seal the victory. I mean, it was almost like every single player on that defense did something to make that game memorable for Charleston. And the last time I can remember a backup quarterback winning a game in the SFL was season 2, Mike. So I mean, it's impossible. The Charleston defense gets my game ball this week.
Yeah, that's a great choice. They were definitely a key part of why Charleston won that ball game the other night.
Go ahead, Mike.
Game ball number 2. I struggled with this one, but because we looked like the Jacksonville of old and the Jacksonville that I had come to know and love, I'm going to give this one to Christensen. I struggled actually between him and Hunter Norwood, who got off to a great game with 3.5 sacks, but Christensen 335 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jacksonville looked like the Jacksonville that we all know, and great performance by Christian tonight.
Jacksonville's D-line got back at it. They got a get right game tonight or Sunday night against San Diego after having no sacks in the first 2 weeks. They sure cleaned up against Javier Vasquez on Sunday night. My second game ball, it's tough because they didn't win. But John Blades had 325 yards. I thought it was just sensational what Blades did. I mean, I don't care who you are. You get 325 receiving, somebody's got to give you a game ball. Somebody. Yeah. LA should go to Vegas's locker room and be here. Take this. I mean, he put the team on his back. And obviously, yes, Pierce got it to him, but 325 for one player. I got to give it to him. And John Blades gets my second game ball in a loss, which probably won't happen very often on this in this segment this year. So tip of the cap to John Blades.
Yeah, I can definitely second that because I almost gave Pierce my second game ball. It would be a great game from in a losing effort. So I can definitely understand that pick.
All right, that wraps it up for Game Day Wrap-Up. Week 4 starts on Saturday at 4:30. We've got some great games next week, including Vancouver and St. Louis, 2 undefeated teams squaring off. That's Sunday afternoon. Can't wait for that one. And then Jacksonville Lone Star is, as mentioned, Denver takes on Arizona. That's going to be a huge game for Arizona. They do not want to go 1-3 and slide back down. And then Louisiana-Atlanta is another spotlight game. Louisiana. Guess who they play in week 5?
Oh, who's on the schedule?
Denver.
Oh, wow.
So if they don't beat Atlanta, they could be 0-5. This is like a must-win game for Louisiana. There's gonna be a lot of talking. Dynasty, Pickler, a lot of hair flipping. That's gonna be a huge game to kick off week 4. And many others on the slate. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next weekend. For Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine. Good night. See ya.